The Matthew Dark Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, praise God. Welcome in. So good to be with you. Much to get into. I want to go to Friday night, this last Friday night. The Senate confirms Todd Blanche 50-49. Of course, no Mitch McConnell. We have Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins joining Democrats. 50-49. He's in, takes a majority. Your new acting attorney general, Todd Blanche. And of course, you know Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche was Trump's personal attorney. He was the attorney that handled the Stormy Daniels hush money, the $130,000 paid to not disclose the affair that Donald Trump had. We believe Donald Trump had inappropriate relations with people other than his wife in the last 30 or 40 years. I think that's going to be pretty easy to establish. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of fight back. If anybody here watching who loves President Trump also believes he's never cheated on his wife, your mind is not operating at full capacity. There's no way that this man who's addicted to women, fashion models, teen pageants, Epstein and his whole cohorts, there's no way he hasn't cheated on his wife. But of course, Stormy Daniels, just before the 2016 election, was going to break that story. She was paid $130,000 to not do so. And that case was handled by Todd Blanche. Now, flash forward to present times. Pam Bondi was fired after her bumbling, stumbling attempt to distract, cover up the Epstein files. Donald Trump knew that that was going to be out of her league, way over her head, that this was going to need the best in the business, and that was Todd Blanche. And so Todd Blanche has been acting attorney general, continuing to suppress the Epstein files. He's now being forced to turn over those files. We'll touch a little bit on those. Judge Sullivan has those in now his possession, and we will be making a ruling on what else still needs to be released. But I'm not sure MAGA appreciates the level of betrayal in even nominating Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche has made a mockery of the Epstein files, reporters that ask him questions, and we'll look at some of his responses, playing dumb, playing coy, playing a fool. What men, what co-conspirators? Oh, I don't know. The ones that are in the emails saying, hey, Jeffrey, I love the torture video that you sent me. Those are the kind of things that we expected to be followed up on, investigated, prosecuted. And if we need jail time, if we need death sentences for those that abused, raped, killed 8 children, we fully expected the acting or confirmed attorney general to take the lead on that. Remember, these were crimes against children, and these crimes were committed by wealthy people, positions of power people, global influencers, Jewish people were in there, Middle Eastern people were in there. But they were all privileged, and they're being treated privileged because why? They were friends of Donald Trump's, or they were friends of Donald Trump's. And the system requires we let this one go, we bury it. And of course, that's how we ended up in the Iran war. But this is an epic betrayal of MAGA. So was the Iran war. So was the out of control inflation. So is the AI. Trump is the one participating in the cryptocurrencies, the flock cameras, the surveillance society. He is the one that has turned over much of his administration to tech-heavy people, same people that used to hate him and try to bring him down. Mark Zuckerberg's, Larry Ellison's. These people are now involved in high-level stuff with Bill Gates. He's honoring Bill Gates. Of course, Donald Trump is still going to honor the Fauci pardon because he plans to use pardons extensively on his own cabinet before he leaves. And so any questioning of a pardon now will not look good for him when he does that. His entire administration, J.D. Vance is going to need one. Todd Blanche is going to need one. Everybody who's participated in the cover-up of the Epstein files is going to need a pardon. And so he's going to allow that one to stand or not make a fuss of it with Tony Fauci. But Todd Blanche has stated over and over, he will not be pursuing anything else. He will not meet with the victims. He will not give it a time of day. He, in his mind, has done everything that the Department of Justice is willing to do from this point forward. So if you were hoping that certainly we're done with the betrayals, when you went to war with Iran, we thought that was maybe the end of it. When we inflated the economy to where it's now more expensive under Donald Trump's economy than it was at any point in time in Joe Biden's economy, we thought maybe that would have been enough. When you invite Bibi Netanyahu over here 8 times to have meetings and deals and plans and schemes, we thought, well, certainly he'll get back to America, right? At some point. And of course, he's not. He's gotten into the business of foreign wars, wars of choice, and cover-ups, which are staples of what we rejected. That's why when he went to campaign in 2015, he comes down the escalator, Trump Towers. It was two messages: drain the swamp, and we're going to close the border. Okay. Those were the two things that were promised. So far, we have a border that's 94% closed. We don't have a border wall complete yet, but it's mostly closed. So the invasion has stopped. Joe Biden did author the greatest invasion in American history, and he was celebrating it. And of course, now those people are not leaving. Less than 300 deportations since Trump took office this second term. That won't cut it. That was also on the promises, also on the mandate. When we sent him back, we had to drain the swamp. We had to close the border. We had to deport illegal aliens. They can't live here, okay? You snuck in. You committed a crime to get into our country. We didn't have any room. We were full, unfortunately. We'd love to have you. You need to check back, though, when we have vacancy. And right now we have no vacancy. We have suffering in our own country. We have inflation, and especially inflation in housing. Rent and housing is unaffordable. The idea of owning a home in America is gone out the window. We thought those betrayals would be enough. Okay. We were off track, but certainly we're going to get back to the business of America. And this nomination of Todd Blanche seals the fate of so much cleansing that had to be done. See, we have emails available right now. And I know Donald Trump fans are going to say, well, if Joe Biden had these for 4 years and didn't come after him, it must be a hoax. It must not be in there. And of course, Joe Biden's donors and friends are in there. Many government positions are connected to people in the Epstein files. So of course, they're not going to rock the boat. And there's no way Donald Trump's the only star of the Epstein files. We have many offenders inside the Epstein files. And right now, Judge Sullivan is reviewing those one at a time. And the DOJ has already acknowledged some of these shouldn't have been redacted. You caught us. You busted us. We didn't think this was going to come up, but now that we're caught red-handed under federal judge orders to hand over these files, he is now going through them one by one, and we'll make a determination of what needs to be. So you could consider Judge Emmett Sullivan the most consequential person in America right now, because if he deems this should not have been redacted under the law, Epstein Files Transparency Act, you're in violation, and he releases those to the public, we have a major catastrophe brewing for the Trump administration. They have fought so hard. Every single one of them has fought so hard, even though they believed in the Epstein files prior to this second term. They didn't actually think they would get to this moment in time. And we are here at this moment in time in which we have 3 million files still remaining. We have names that are sending horrific, awful, disgusting, filthy emails to Jeffrey Epstein, and they still have a black line over that senders. Why is that? Who is that person? And what would it mean for the country if that person's name was revealed? These aren't victims, just so we're clear. The DOJ keeps trying to play this game that we're protecting the idea of victims. And they even tried to do this one. And this is not, this is ridiculous, but this is what they're trying to do right now, that in so many cases, the redacted names, even though they're sending truly offensive, crime-worthy emails, they are saying, yeah, but because they are former victims, it would be inappropriate to release their names as they're now committing a criminal act. Is that going to work for you? That's the question. Do you really believe that hundreds and hundreds of victims actually became co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein's? And even if they did, they were trapped, they were in, they couldn't get out, so they joined him. They became criminals, and we have other victims that need justice. We have people of high position and rank that need to be removed from those. Their wealth needs to be confiscated. They need to enter the prison system as a result of their conduct and their abuse of children, rape of children, kill of children, eating of children. Those things all have to be judged. Those all things have to be dealt with, or you don't have a country. You don't have a country in which the leadership is allowed to abuse children, and our Department of Justice is on the cover-up, leading the cover-up. You don't have a country that way. Why pay taxes? Why vote? Why pretend any of this stuff matters if even the most basic, which is protecting children, cannot be honored at the highest level? So you have a serious problem if you're MAGA, because the betrayals are mounting up to a point of no return. You know, at this point, it's clear Donald Trump changed teams. He switched teams. He joined the swamp. And let's face it, If your desire is to be a politically important person, it's much easier. It's much safer to be a part of the swamp than fighting the swamp. You saw that with Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino talked like a tough guy all the time. Keep an eye on the Epstein files, folks. There is a lot in there, and we're coming. So what happened? Dan Bongino, he got a government job, assistant deputy FBI director. And what happened the moment he entered the swamp? Whole new person. Jeffrey Epstein did commit suicide. The Epstein files have been fully investigated. I saw him myself. There's nothing. That's a lie. That's a lie. So he was a bought off person thinking that if certainly, this is the Trump team talking, if we bring a Dan Bongino in and he tells his fans and the right, hey, listen, guys, I was going there to try to get this figured out. I looked through the evidence myself. There's nothing there. We got to move on. It's just not going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it because we've seen half the files and there's enough there to get moving on. Les Wexner, Leon Black, Jess Staley, all these people are guilty right now. We know that. And not just tax evasion, but the abuse and sexual assault of children. And I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're hardcore MAGA. That should bother you that that is being intentionally covered up. And there is no 5D chess in play. Well, Donald Trump is doing this for the greater good. Somehow this is going to reveal something even greater than the prosecution of pedophiles. And that's just not true. That's a lie. It's because Donald Trump himself is involved in the Epstein files. Those he was dear friends with and receiving money from are in the Epstein files. And then he has a gun to the back of his head saying, forget about your friends. You're not going to take down what we do, which is blackmail, extort, and manipulate U.S. politicians. You're not going to touch that. And so Donald Trump, he took his $250 million from AIPAC, Miriam Adelson, the widow of the casino tycoon that made his money gambling in China, Macau, and now brings that money here and buys seats in Kentucky. Of course, she's responsible for the $32 million that was used to unseat Thomas Massie. So we see what's going on. We've been asking questions, and our eyes now can see, oh, I see. The president got elected and switched teams like almost immediately. He's fired several women in his administration. They just didn't have what it took to play ball with the boys like that needs to be played. We're playing dirty pool. We're playing dirty games. Epstein files is number one. And the slap in the face to America is the appointment of Todd Blanche. There's not a greater loss to the Justice Department. There's not a greater deceit to the Justice Department than confirming Todd Blanche. He doesn't want to address pedophilia. He doesn't want to look at government corruption. He wants to protect President Trump. He even confessed, I'm President Trump's attorney. I mean, acting attorney general. He had to catch himself because he knows that's what his role is, protect the president. And that's not a country. We have supposedly two choices in this country. One, MAGA means you have to endorse and support and look the other way for the Iran war. You have to support Israel till you're blue in the face. You have to cover up the Epstein files. You have to pretend that this is not an inflated economy. You have to also suggest that, hey, you said you would deport all these illegal aliens and you've like deported none, right? It's unacceptable on the right. And so your choices on the right are not adequate for the needs of the American people. And of course, Democrats you can't vote for. They want to hand the party over to communists, this Democrat Socialists of America, which is communism. There's no such thing as that, right? There's no Democrat socialist. Everybody calls Israel a democracy in the Middle East. It's a socialist country. Government controls food prices, healthcare, how you move and go. These are all lies. So you don't have a candidate on the left because they support LGBTQ, they support an open border, they support socialism, communism, and the eventual breakdown and evaporation of a once great country, America. Those aren't choices, folks. Neither of those are adequate. Neither of those will be okay moving forward. They're not sustainable. Both parties spend too much money. They raise too much debt. Then they force us to pay back our debt, although they just print theirs. So if an interest payment comes up, they just print the money, transfer it electronically. We made this month's payment. We don't get to do that. We actually have to come up with the cash, the cold hard cash to pay those debt. The government doesn't have to participate that way. Doesn't seem right, doesn't seem fair, doesn't seem sustainable. And of course, it's not. $40 trillion in debt and counting. The interest on the $40 trillion in debt will be about a quarter of the GDP here in the next couple of years. I mean, so why even pretend you're paying it back? It is now an appropriate time to go to your creditors, to go to China, to go to all these other countries and say, you're not getting your full money back. There's no more interest payments. How would you like to settle this? And that's what's going to happen pretty soon. But President Trump has driven this ship now into a forever war in Iran. That's a problem. And now there's a permanent stain on the country with the cover up and now closure because of Todd Blanche on the Epstein files. The interesting thing about it, though, and I know they know about this, but it's down the road, so they're dealing with it later. We'll deal with it. Eventually, Donald Trump, Todd Blanche, they lose control of the Epstein files. Eventually, Democrats will be in charge. And if they choose to use these Epstein files to put Donald Trump and other cover-up participants away, they've been set up on a tee to do stuff so easy like that. How easy is it going to be when you have a Merrick Garland back as Attorney General and a president like Joe Biden that just releases bureaucrats after? How easy is it going to be to go after Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche? And that's why they're all going to need pardons, because they've been told specifically, and we got this from Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you release the Epstein files, it's going to hurt my friends. Well, you don't get to have that kind of choice as the president of the United States. Your whole job, your singular mission, your only focus is the will and protection of the American people. So do the Americans support the cover up of the Epstein files? A little bit do. The boomer MAGA crowd supports the cover up. That's a smaller crowd. The left wants him on a head on a stake for this. The old MAGA people that said, hey, I thought we were going to clean all this stuff up, they've left the party. They're not going to vote for Democrats. They're just not going to vote, or they'll vote for some now third independent RFK style of a candidate that comes in, and the choice is neither. But the two-choice system that we have, it's not working for anybody. And Stevie Wonder can see it. Helen Keller can see it. Any famous blind person that you think of, they can all see it's not working, this two-party choice here in America. Both are corrupted. Both are actively working against the American people. And so we have midterms coming up. Of course, that's when Donald Trump loses control of that. If there's a single Republican out there thinking that Donald Trump maintains control of the House in November, it's too wishful. You're not going to, which means impeachment comes day one of the new Congress, January 2027. And they'll say, well, what's he done? What's his crime? Well, you know, the first go around, you were probably right. There wasn't crimes worthy of impeachment. The phone call to Zelensky that says you need to give me the goods on Joe Biden, or we're not going to give you the money, that's impeachable? I don't think so. And then, of course, Russia, the fake story that Russia was working with Trump colluding to win the 2016, when we know Hillary Clinton paid $7 million for the Steele dossier that was littered with fabricated stories, strippers peeing on Donald Trump. Russians had access to Trump Towers, and they were behind the scenes pulling all the strings. None of that was true. We wasted 3 years, a ton of money, got nothing done. And then we did the Ukraine one, and then we had January 6th, and he was gone, right? Well, we're back now with actually meat on the bone. If you want to impeach Donald Trump, you've got some meat there. Sure. The Iran invasion, it has no congressional approval and it's still going on. It was supposed to be a 2-week war. It's now over 5 months. That's not going to work. It's going to be 5 months here. They say the Strait of Hormuz is opening any day, and it's not even close. The moment it opens, it means Iran's been obliterated. That's the only way you can open the Strait of Hormuz moving forward. It's Iran's basically only leverage. They can say nuclear, but look at how far down the road nuclear is. You can close the Strait of Hormuz today, though. And so that's not going to get rectified anytime soon. So we take the 6 ships in and out. We used to have 140. Now we get 6 ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Somehow oil is going down and gas is still so expensive. Why is that? President Trump must explain that to the American people. How are we manipulating gas prices higher, yet the price of oil is way down? The price of oil was higher under Joe Biden, but gas was less. Make that make sense. How does that happen? Donald Trump has to explain that to the American people. They're going to have to come out and say, why is it you're fighting so hard to keep the Epstein files suppressed, covered up, and dealt with? Why are you not just addressing them and get it over with? Donald Trump's declared himself innocent. He's not the star of them. Why would you want to let these bad players go? And of course, Todd Blanche has been selected to make sure that at least while Republicans are in charge that those will never come out. And I think that's a tragedy in America. I think it hurts every person in America to have government covering up crimes against children. I don't think that improves the nation's morale. I don't think it makes us a worthy country to advise others on. I mean, what credibility does America have when the world can see you're covering up the Epstein files? You're actively participating in the greatest cover-up of all time. Of course, it's happening right here in America. This is nothing compared to JFK. This is nothing compared to 9/11. Okay, these were powerful people snatching children, raping them, discarding them, and now they want to bury it like it never happened. And I think we know why. I think we know why. I think we know that Donald Trump is in those files. I think we know that big time players are in those files, and that the system as we know it right now would implode on itself, much like Building 7, if we got all the files. So we have a terrible situation brewing in America in which you now have one of the worst attorneys leading the Department of Justice. Satan is leading the Department of Justice. He's not going to pursue anything with the Epstein case. And Donald Trump thinks he's off the hook. But the message is clear. You can go start as many wars as you want, wherever you want. The Epstein files are never going away. Why? The will of the people is saying, let's have it. Let's have justice. And we're never going to stop talking about this. So they have to keep the Iran war going on just a little bit longer. They need some time to breathe still, even though it was late January, they were released, the Epstein files. We had the congressional testimony of Pam Bondi mid-February, disaster for her, got her fired. And now Judge Emmett Sullivan is in his chambers reviewing the remaining 3 million files. And he will make a ruling that, yes, these should be released, or if they're not, he's going to have to. So it's all about Judge Sullivan. Now, you can't imagine the amount of pressure or money being thrown at him to rule in the favor of the Trump White House. They do not want these out. It's a disaster. It's going to embarrass Trump personally, and it's going to make the Republicans basically unelectable because they're the ones doing this. And so it's going to get revealed that, well, hold on a second. There was enough in here to pursue charges against this person. Why would you not do that? That information is going to come out per Judge Sullivan. And if it doesn't, he's going to have to tell America, hey, I guess they were right. Todd Blanche was telling us the truth the whole time. Nobody's going to believe that. They're going to know they got to him. And so he's doing it. So we've got a packed week. You've got Iran war. Trump says it's opening soon, the Strait of Hormuz. It's not. There is a deal between Oman and Iran to have a commerce through. It will include no U.S. ships or hostile ships, and there will be tolls paid. At the end of the day, before February 28th, it was free flowing. There was no tolls. Iran was not dictating what was going on in the Strait. Once this thing is done, Iran will be the permanent controller of the Strait of Hormuz. They will be charging tolls. They will be making money on this. Now, over here, we're paying $2 billion a day. We are running low on munitions. Trump says that that's a lie. That's a leak. They've been in Ukraine for 4 years, and then we've been defending Israel against Iran basically this entire year. So of course you're running out of munitions. They're using drones. We're using, $1 million missiles, $25 million a chunk time. They're just using drones, disposable drones, and they can get a new one and send it over and cause damage. That's how Ukraine is fighting Russia. So we have it hitting the fan. We don't have a great country right now. We could take it back, but it does take people saying no to President Trump. 62 to 80-year-olds, our baby boomers, have got to demand more from Donald Trump and say, give us the files. We don't care. We don't believe you. And if you piss off that crowd, that last remaining crowd, that little vessel, that little vestige of support, 62 to 80 years old, probably white, retired, MAGA conservative, if they turn on him, Donald Trump is the pariah of the world. And so he's holding on to them desperately. He's got them convinced that he's not in the files. There's nothing to see in the files. And of course, Todd Blanche will be reinforcing that every day. So we have to not stop talking. We keep asking questions. We keep asking Charlie Kirk questions, Iran questions, Israel questions, corruption questions. We never stop doing that. They never stop lying. So our job is to be vigilant. And so we do that together. We do that for the glory of Jesus Christ, and do this until next time. Tell a friend about him. Stay good. God bless everybody.
The Matthew Dark Show, your one-stop show for truth, courage, fellowship, and faith. Available everywhere you get your podcasts.